Roger, Roger.
Roger.
Hello. What's going
Hi.
on? Kelsey, you couldn't give us a single Roger? Did you? Once again, just like the thing we do at the beginning of the podcast where we had to count to make sure our tracks were synced, Kelsey froze. And when everyone else on the call says a thing, she just froze and stared at us. We didn't go over this, so I cannot, in my contract states, I cannot participate in any bits that have not been cleared through my management already.
I was gonna say we should have rehearsed that.
Exactly.
We're just gone over it.
Thank you.
We do this podcast every 5 months, Mark. You should be in rhythm and ready to go every time. This is Roger, Roger, a Star Wars podcast where we go through the Star Wars movies together. I'm Bobby, and I'm here with Justin, Kelsey, and Mark. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I thought we were doing a name thing.
I didn't want to tempt fate. I didn't want to tempt fate because even if I said, "Hey, Justin," Justin said, "Hey, everybody," and I said, "Hey, Kelsey," you would have been like, "I don't know what to do."
I don't know what to do with these hands.
So last time we did this, we talked about Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. And this time we're moving on to the era of rebellion, as I guess Lucasfilm now calls it, with one of the 2 movies that currently exist in that time frame, pre the original trilogy, which is Solo, a Star Wars story, which was the last... of those Star Wars stories they put out 2 of them. Solo was the last one. And we're going to discuss that today. We're going to discuss whether or not we think it deserved to be the thing that killed, other Star Wars movies, or if possibly it's a little more maligned than it deserves to be. We're doing this live on YouTube, misadventure.land, if you're listening in podcast form. If you are watching the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and share so that people can check us out. I want to dive right into this. Here's what I want to say. If people haven't listened before, what we're going to do is it's going to be full spoilers. Like, we're not going to do a non-spoiler section and then this movie is however many years old, but we're gonna just dive into the movie and kind of gotta go beat by beat a little bit, like kind of in chronological order of the film. But we might bring up other parts of the movie, as we're talking about some parts of the movie. And we'll just go through it. We've done this with the 3 prequels already. Those exist, so we can already do that. You guys can go check those out on the podcast feed. But this one's gonna be interesting because I had my notebook and I was taking notes for the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie. And then I was like, there's not as much to talk about in this movie as there was in the other movies.
Same.
It's very simple. It's very simple, and that's what I'll start out with. But the story of Solo, a Star Wars story, is we follow the trials and tribulations of a young Han Solo who starts his life out as a street rat on Corellia, escapes, and joins the Imperial Navy to become a pilot, and then when we see him again, he's sort of just like a grunt who is, mouthing off, and he meets up with this band of outlaws led by Woody Harrelson, his character Beckett, and they go on an adventure to steal, what is that stuff called? The stuff that they use for the warp drives. I don't remember. I thought I wrote it down, and I'm looking at my notes, and I don't say that I wrote it down. There's this stuff.
Coaxium,
unobtainium,
yes.
that is very, very valuable, that everybody wants, and they need to go and steal some to make it right with this criminal syndicate called Crimson Dawn. And along the way, they discover a young Lando Calrissian and a Millennium Falcon, and they go on a rollicking adventure to try to get this stuff, full of gangs and mining colonies and intrigue. And we are supposedly supposed to learn sort of the origins and early life and why of who Han Solo is. We're gonna just dive right in and start out here. I don't know if we want to give general thoughts about the movie first, or we just want to go start diving in and go beat by beat. How does the panel feel today?
I think we should just go for it.
I was gonna say, I think we should do general thoughts.
All right. Okay. General thoughts.
General thoughts.
I think this is going to be interesting because I think some of our opinions are going to be wildly different.
Yes,
Yep.
I agree.
For instance, think this movie whips ass. It's awesome.
Mark, counterpoint.
I feel similarly to when my ass is whipped after watching this movie. Not great about it, although slightly intrigued, I guess.
Okay.
Actually, having your ass whipped feels very accurate to how I feel about the movie. It's like not great, but like slightly intrigued.
Kelsey, what about you?
I think I liked like the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
Everything.
That's so specific.
Sorry, that was an
Everything
honest reaction. We're doing
else.
this live.
Yeah, I was really bored.
I'm closer, I think, to. I'm not all the way into this movie whips ass, but I enjoy. I think I enjoy more of it than I dislike. I will say that there are things I definitely don't like about the movie, and we'll definitely get into those things as we go through it. But I don't think it is a like disaster of a movie. So that's where I am on this point. But we'll jump right in now and start through. We always start with the opening crawl. There isn't really an opening crawl in this, but there is like at least like a opening set of text.
Strike one.
Yeah.
Strike one.
And it reads, "It is a lawless time. Crime syndicates compete for resources, food, medicine, and hyperfuel. On the shipbuilding planet of Corellia, the foul Lady Proxima forces runaways into a life of crime in exchange for shelter and protection. On these mean streets, a young man fights for survival but yearns to fly among the stars." It's a bad set of opening text. I will say that, and I will say this too. I think the opening text is a pointer to something that is the pointer to the thing I mainly don't like about the movie, which is this need to over-explain like Han Solo as a character, as a young man, as a whatever. Like that last line that reads, "On these mean streets, a young man fights for survival but yearns to fly among the stars." Like, that's something that you get from the movie itself in the first, I don't know, 5 minutes. He like literally says
5 minutes,
out loud.
like 10 seconds.
Yeah, whatever it is.
You
He, like,
get
says
all of
it out
that.
loud. Yeah, he like says it out
it's
loud.
insane. It does. It feels like a graduation speech, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All of you just yearn to reach, to be among the stars,
To fly among
And
the
then there's light
stars.
applause among the parents.
So in this opening section of the movie, we see young Han Solo, played by Alden Ehrenreich. Is that how you say his name?
I
He's
believe so, yeah.
he's not the other one. He's not Baby Driver, who also has a weird name and is also apparently kind of a creep.
And he was also in the running for this role.
Oh,
Ansel
was he?
Elgort.
Yeah,
okay.
Ansel.
Was.
Yeah, Ansel Elgort or whatever.
Elgort.
Elgort, two weirdly named people up for the role of Han Solo.
Aren't when you're famous, you're supposed to change your name to Tom Cruise or something like super easy to get out?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Both of them have the initials AE too.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's very weird. It's a very weird
weird.
thing. It's a very
Yeah.
strange coincidence. So,
Like Titan AE, except not as good.
oh
Yeah.
boy, Titan AE.
I
Jesus.
thought of the same thing. Is that weird?
It is weird. Kelsey, it's before
Yeah.
your time. Kelsey's
I was like, what is this?
It was an animated film. Yeah, that came out right around the time that I think episode 1 came out. I think
Kelsey
it
was born,
Matt
probably.
Damon.
Yeah.
I
Was it Matt
6.
Damon?
Matt Damon voiced. It's like Matt Damon. I think it might have been like Meg Ryan or something like that. That did.
I
the
think Meg
voices.
Ryan was in it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never
And it
seen a
had
movie
an
with Meg
amazing
Ryan.
trailer
That
with the
helps.
Creed song, so I know Bobby's interested.
Yeah. I was very interested in that movie when it was coming out. It was a big
trailer was amazing.
animated sci-fi like epic thing that they did at the time. But like, so really quick, I guess we should rewind
Kelsey,
a little bit.
Titan. You should watch Titan AE, Kelsey.
This
I'm watching you look at this now.
yeah. This movie, Solo, not Titan AE, Solo, was originally supposed to be directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I said that right? It's not Chris Miller and
Yes.
yeah, Chris
Yes,
Miller and Phil
got
Lord. Okay. And about halfway through production, or maybe even close to even more than that, I think it was near the end of production, they got taken off the movie and replaced by Ron Howard, who was the director of credit on the movie. I don't think it's kind of impossible to know, other than just like kind of guess by tone and moments that happen, like what of their movie is left and what was completely replaced when Howard took over. You know, we can guess a million times why it happened. I mean, there is probably a lot of truth to like, oh, they wanted to do stuff that was different, and Lucasfilm didn't want them to do different stuff. I'm sure there were other reasons too. I mean, Lucasfilm, since Disney bought them, has had a long line of directors leave or get kicked off of projects. Chris Miller and Phil Lord are just two of those. Chris Miller and Phil Lord are the people who they didn't direct Spider-Verse, but they were creative leads. They produced it, and they kind of helped it come to fruition. They made the 21 Jump Street movies. They made the Lego movie. Yeah. So they're pretty known for taking like properties that are very tough to make, that seem like they would be terrible, and making good things out of them is like what they're like known to do. So anyway, that's on the backdrop to the movie. The movie starts, we're on Corellia, we're with a younger Han Solo, though he looks exactly the same age as he does the rest of the movie. So it's tough for me to place like where like this is, like, you know, exactly what's happened. But he works for this lady, or he's like a ward of this Lady Proxima person, along with the Khaleesi character.
With the cutest spelling of Kira you've ever seen in your life.
It's Kira. The Star Wars spelling of Kira. And they are in love, and they have this plan to get off. You know, Han Solo's going to pull a Han Solo scam, and get them off. They get caught immediately, basically. And they go on a run, and we have a chase scene through the streets that leads us to like the spaceport, where, you know, they're gonna get on a ship and go. They like bribe this person, this Imperial officer, to let them through, and then things go wrong, and then they get separated, and one has to stay and one has to go, and one has to go. Before we get to the end of this, I will call it the act. I mean, it's very short, but it's like basically the opening of the movie. Before we get to the moment where the name moment, which we'll speak about when it's over, when we get to it. How do we feel, Justin, about this opening sort of like section of the movie?
I remember watching this in the movie theater and just being kind of blown away from just how different it looked from every other Star Wars movie. Like, and this is, apparently was meant to just really convey the tone of how like dim and desperate this planet is, or this city, but it is it's very dark and like very grim and dank, and I was like, this doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie when I was watching it, and that's what I liked about it. And I think that thought carries through a lot for the rest of this movie, is like, this doesn't look like a Star Wars movie, and that's why I like it so much. But that's what I was thinking about in this opening act.
What about you, Kelsey? Any thoughts?
I was gonna say, I'm like shocked that you think it doesn't look like every other Star Wars movie, because I think it does. It's very like dark, and I think that we've seen that before, like just in lighting. I find all of them start kind of dark, and I hated the beginning. I hated the chemistry between Han and Kira. Disgusting, so awkward. I literally was cringing. Just everything about the beginning part I did not like. Lady Proxima, she was defeated so easily. Like just everything I hated.
What about you, Mark?
I'm gonna throw a curveball out off the jump here. I agree with Justin that like visually it does feel different. That it's kind of dark and weird. Because usually the darkness is like inside, like the Death Star or something like that, contrasting with like super white. Mm-hmm. But for it to be like the entire scene outdoor, dark planet. Until he throws like that rock through the window spoilers, and really messes up Lady Proxima, who's a vampire worm of some sort.
Yeah, some sort.
Of some sort. Yeah. I thought the visuals were fine. I thought the overall storytelling there was very much violating the role of show don't tell. They're just telling us everything. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, we have to do this, and then we're going to get a ship, and then we're going to fly away like we've always talked about. I'm like, great. And then even with Lady Proxima, where Kira intervenes, she's like, you remember when we found you in the middle of nowhere in the gutter? Do you want to throw that away for him? I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. I'm like, okay, guys, I can't figure anything out on my own. Spoon feed me for the rest of this movie. And they really do. And I think that's like my problem with the movie is like, Bob, you had mentioned this at the beginning, that they simplified things, but I think they went too far in the other direction where it's so simple that anything that you might be confused about, they immediately explain to you like, no, we'll explain it to you now. So don't lose your focus. It's like, oh, these guys are the bad guys because, but wait, they're good now because let me tell you everything and show you nothing.
Yeah. And I think like this opening like 30 minutes of the movie for me, as someone who even likes the movie, is like the weakest part of the movie to me. I like the visuals. Like I think like whether it looks like what it looks like to me is like, what I'll say is like, it looks like to me the thing that was always sort of like promised when they talked about like underworld Star Wars stuff. And it does, to me, it does look like Star Wars. Like it does like, and one of my things I like about this movie actually in general is I think the visual like language of the movie is much more like, you know, original trilogy Star Wars than some of the other movies are, and I like that about it. But I do like the fact that we're seeing a planet, we're seeing the Imperial Star Destroyers being built like in the sky and stuff like that. I think that stuff is cool, right? And I think I am always a fan of in universes when they show you like the inner workings of how stuff gets done, right? I like that part of it. I like that. Like, this is where the ship's got to get built somewhere, right? And this is where they're getting built, right? I like that idea of it. Obviously, there isn't a lot placed on that because we're off Corellia in a moment, and even though he talks about going back there for the first 30 minutes of the movie, we never see it again, right?
I like the part where they separated.
You like the part because they're not together anymore?
Yeah.
This movie is full of very short, like it's full of very much like, okay, you have connection to these people because you do. Like that is kind of like what every relationship is like. That's what the movie does.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. That's exactly what the movie does over and over and over again. And they're trying to get you to have the same type of emotional beats that you have with interactions with characters in the original trilogy, or even in like the mess of the prequel trilogy. But you have no time for those types of emotional connections to be made because you're just thrown in together and then they're gone. They dispose of secondary characters in this movie incredibly fast. Like they introduce them, and before you've learned their name, they're dead, and you're supposed to have this emotional reaction to them dying. Like, who's this guy again?
I don't even remember this forearm guy's name. What the hell?
That's exactly what I was thinking about. They're like, oh, he's to the shoulder. It's not that bad. As he's like crashing into like, oh, it's pretty bad. And they're like, no, you know what? You are a great pilot, kid. You promised. I'm like, what? You hated this kid 5 minutes ago.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, that is Jon Favreau, by the way. That is Jon Favreau, by the way.
What an introduction into the universe.
Yeah. So you mentioned that when they get the way they get, again, all these like very like shortcut ways to do things, like literally they get separated because somebody grabs her shoulder right before a door closes. Like it's just like there is just like this beginning is clunky, very clunky to me. Like like go back to visuals. I like when they have like the Lady Proxima thing or whatever, and she's like in the shadow and it looks like a puppet. I was like, oh, this is cool. They're doing like a puppet thing. And then once the light comes in, I'm like, oh no, it's just a CG worm. Like it was, you know, it was covered up by the lighting, but you know, so. They bribe this Imperial officer. They get separated in this gate. You know, Kira and Han, and then like she basically just like go, and then they're still looking for like the Imperial officer kind of like betrays them and is like, oh, there's somebody hiding, and then Han just kind of gets away by like hiding behind some speeder bikes or whatever, while they pull people who kind of look like him like out of line, and
he's just okay with it.
Yeah, he doesn't care. as long as I'm okay, I don't care. It's unfortunate. The guy also has like incredibly well coiffed hair for like a street urchin or whatever. So he decides to join the like Imperial like army or navy, who have very low standards. They have incredibly low standards. This guy just walks up and goes like, I don't know, I don't got a last name. I want to be a pilot. Like, and he's like, okay. And this next moment is the thing that defines the thing about the movie that I think holds it back from being a much better movie. where we get this moment where he goes, okay, what's your name? He goes, Han. And he goes, okay, what's your last name? And he goes, I don't have a last name. I don't have anybody. And the guy goes, oh, Han Solo.
Yep.
And they make like so it's like this like troll by the Imperial officer, right? About like, you got nobody. Your last name's gonna be Solo. Whatever. That's like that idea of that is fine to me, but it's like it's this idea the movie has that like, no, you really needed to know. You've been asking yourself for 40 years, why does his last name Solo? Well, we're gonna tell you right now. And it's like that's the kind of stuff about movies like this, prequel movies and movies that follow in line in mythos that I don't like, right? It's like I don't need to know that. And more so, and this is my main thesis on the entire movie. The worst parts of this movie are the parts where it's a movie about Han Solo. Like, right? If
I
if
agree with that.
You know, if they had not only just the performance of AE, but also like the or the characterization. I don't think he's terrible, but like it's like the way. But the fact that if this had just been about like another character, like a new character who was a street rat who got out, who went on these smuggling adventures, who was Han Solo-ish, sure, but like not Han Solo, the movie I think would have been way better. And this is
It's called Aladdin.
Yeah, Aladdin. Yes, yeah. Got a genie, got 3 wishes. He wants to fall in love with the princess. He pretends to be somebody else. No, but like that's the part of this ending of this like first act is the thing about the movie that I think is like it underlines stuff that I think it doesn't work about the movie.
It's the continuing problem of the movie. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because anytime that's the problem with this concept of the movie, they're like, oh wait, he's done the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. How the hell are we going to squeeze that in here? I'm supposed to be excited about it, but all of them, you're like, oh, let's just shoehorn this in. It's like, well, Chewie's with him forever because he owes him a life debt. Why does he owe him that? I mean, that might be the only one that's not completely horrible. Yeah. Although
I love
he speaks to him in his native tongue here, and then he never does in the prequel trilogy. And you're like, oh, he's an asshole.
Yeah, well,
he can talk to him in his language. He knows how.
We're obviously skipping around, but like I wrote in my notes, like they explain everything in this movie, but they don't explain how Han knows how to speak. Like Kashyyyk or whatever, or whatever. Yeah. So like, or Kashyyyk. But anyway, Justin, you were saying you agreed like the parts where it's a Han Solo movie are the worst parts. Like you want to like expand on what you mean?
Just I think the parts where they make it very obvious that there's a callback. Those dice come up multiple times throughout the movie, and it's like yes, I see a dice. Shots. I mean, there were other things like what is it? When they have the Falcon, and we'll get into this later, where he's doing the Kessler Run. Like that's the one that's the one callback that I actually really liked because like I thought that was visually the coolest part of the entire movie. But it would be a much better movie because my thoughts on prequels, well known. If it was just a standard new Star Wars story, like. There is a lot about this movie that I really, really like that I want to get into. It's just the parts that, if there's anything that hold it back, it's the fact that it's like, okay, well, we know what happens with Han Solo, so does any of this actually really matter? If you could divorce yourself of those thoughts, I think the movie, like I said, whips ass. But like, you know where we're going before we get there, which is the standard prequel problem. This one's just compounded by the fact of, what's up with this other love interest he's got going on here? Where it's not going anywhere. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, how does this fail?
So we should take this in as before we dive into like the movie as a whole, and we're getting into like the main meat of the movie now. Kelsey, you wanted to bring up just the casting in general, and I'm gonna hold up a picture of the person you sent to us.
Come on.
What's this person's name?
Like Anthony Igelbort. Hold on.
Is he also
another name? Another one?
Yes, his name is Anthony Gruber. Okay.
How do you spell his last name?
INGRU.
An AI, not an AE.
I know it's an I.
Not an
AE.
Thank goodness. Enough AEs already.
Another AE there, but another name that's hard to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I spent all day figuring it out. He played a young Harrison Ford's character in The Age of Adeline. And it's perfect. I think everything that we're complaining about and all this like lack, I think it would have been charming if the actor looked like a young Han Solo, which he does not. And I think that that's the problem. Because I think if this actor that you saw in that photo, like the way he smirks, I think it's a very similar smirk to what Harrison Ford has. And in that whole Han Solo scene where they're like, oh, Solo, if he would have been like, or something like that, like it would have been charming. And I just think all of these parts would have worked more because that actor is more believable as a young Harrison Ford. Maybe he's not the best actor in the whole entire universe, fine. But like as visually, he looks the same. I think every problem I had with this movie would have worked better because the casting would have been better. There's a reason like Donald Glover worked a lot is because he looks like a Lando Carlson. What I don't know what his name is. Calrissian, whatever.
Lando Carlson.
I want to meet Lando Carlson.
Whatever. I'm being passionate right now. Give me 2 seconds.
He looks just like Lance Carlson, famous smuggler.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I think that Donald Glover was perfect casting. That's what everybody wanted. He looked amazing, and everybody's like, "Yes, that's him. That's our Lance."
That's our Lance Carlson right there. We got
Lance
him.
Carlson is a fantastic name for Lando Calrissian in like a Star Wars porno.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is Lance
You know what I mean.
Carlson.
I just think
Wink.
this actor is a better decision, and I stand by it. And when I found out that this was he was one of the options, but not necessarily the one that they were going for, I think they wanted a more like better or like well-rounded actor, because they had looked at Ansel and all of them.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
They struck out hard.
They struck out like I think for me it's like I don't care how much he looks like Harrison Ford or not, but
Oh, I do.
if he had been great, it wouldn't have mattered
Right.
to me because like just fast forwarding many movies in the future when we're going to talk about this, but Adam Driver at the end of Rise of Skywalker, which spoiler alert is not a very good movie, but the end of he doesn't have his lightsaber and he's like doing the Harrison Ford thing, like he's doing his dad, right? He's like being like his dad, and he embodies like he's doing the thing, like he's way more Han Solo than AE is in this movie, like at all, and he doesn't look anything
I think he
like
looks
Harrison
like his
Ford.
son too.
He doesn't look anything like Harrison
I think
Ford.
he looks like he could be their son.
I don't know.
Right. I mean, but he doesn't have to. He's not like supposed to be him.
No,
right. You have the
But I'm just saying.
freedom of
But sort of like if somebody embodied the spirit of him more, I would be. I'd be happier with it. I think there are flashes in this movie. I think there are flashes in this movie where he's good. Like I don't think he's universally bad across the movie or anything like that. But he doesn't feel like Han Solo most of the time, and that is a detriment to the movie, of course.
And he doesn't even feel like an incomplete version of Han Solo, which is what you could forgive yourself to be in this like timeline of the movie where it is within the universe.
Yeah.
Like piggybacking off of what you and Kelsey have said, if it was one of the two, either if he blew me away with his performance or he looked more like Harrison Ford, I would be able to forgive it more. But when you go 0 for 2, that's when I'm like, okay, well, you struck out with the casting, and it's the titular character, and he's in 90% of the scenes, so you've lost me from the beginning then.
Yeah. Justin, you were going to say something?
And I do think...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Justin.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Kelsey.
I was just going to say, I think that is the main issue with it, and I think with prequels in general, like in any sort of capacity, is like you're attached to one sort of face and one sort of personality, and working on a prequel where they're not like if this was a prequel and Han Solo was 10 and it was a child, I think it would have worked better than Han Solo 10 years younger than he is.
Right. Yeah.
They don't look the same, and there's an expectation of the performance. When if they were children, there wouldn't be that expectation.
Right. Yeah.
So you're saying they should have gotten young Sheldon on this?
Yeah.
Justin, did you want to add anything to this discussion?
I mean,
about
just
the performance?
I remember when this movie was being filmed, and there were all sorts of rumors flying off the set that the casting was a problem. And when I went into the movie originally, I was expecting a tire fire. And it certainly wasn't that. And as far as like his performance went, it's hard, right? You're like, just like embody the spirit of practically the most like dashing and charismatic man of the 70s and 80s. You got this. Don't worry. Yeah. And like with that stacked up against him, I thought he did pretty well. Like, it's not a great performance from him, but you're also asking him to like embody Harrison Ford, which not an easy thing. But for what he brought to it, I didn't think he was bad at all. It's just he's not Harrison Ford. Who is?
Yeah.
The thing I will like compare this to a little bit is it's tough, right? Because Han Solo is a character played by one person in history, right? He's only ever played one person in history until this movie, right? So it's defined by one actor's performance. But there is analog to this when they did the Star Trek reboot in 2009, right? Chris Pine is playing James T. Kirk, who at the time was only played by William Shatner. And he does a fantastic job to me of like embodying Kirk without looking like William Shatner at all, or like even copying his performance in any way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would argue even Zachary Quinto playing Spock, like they look very similar.
Yes.
Right?
Also, more there's makeup involved with. Like, there's a much more like.
Well, yeah.
He's a much more like a manicured character than Kirk is, right? In many ways.
Sure.
Do you guys want to have a Star Trek podcast? I could do that. I love those.
Who knows? They kind of built an escape hatch into their plot wise because they introduced the multiverse in that first movie. They're like, he's not him. So in case you have any problems, take it up with the multiverse.
Yeah, but even regardless of that, I think even if they hadn't have done that, I think they did a really good job picking somebody who was able to act his ass off in making like the character his own, but still feeling like that original character. And they just didn't find I don't know if it was all Alden Ehrenreich's fault or it was partly the writing's fault and the performances and the schedule, like all that stuff. Like I don't know, right? So there's a lot that goes into making movies and a lot that goes into performances more than just what the actor brings on the day, right? But I think whatever their portrayal of Han Solo, I don't think works particularly well as Han Solo, and that's again goes back to my like whole problem with the movie in general. And now I think if they were thinking about making a movie like this now, like it would be a Disney Plus television show, but also like I think they would feel way more comfortable doing something that's more just like living in like the extended universe than it having to be a Han Solo movie, right? Because I think I think with the Mandalorian we've seen them able to like bring a character in who is very reminiscent of another character, but make them their own. And I think they could have done that with this in more ways. But they were so focused. I don't remember at this time, like they had done Rogue One and then they did this. And then they had the Boba Fett movie, like that was supposedly like going to be made.
That was supposed to be the third one.
That was supposed to be the third one. There was talk of them doing an Obi-Wan movie at that time. Like, so there was all of this like rumor and stuff that going around all the time. And then this kind of didn't do very well for Star Wars standards, and it chopped all that down. But anyway, we're off Corellia, and we're into again, I think another pretty interesting visual like section of the movie, like seeing like this World War I style kind of like in the trenches fight with the Empire, sort of like what it looks like with the Empire, not with clone troopers, not with stormtroopers, with like regular ass people in uniforms having to fight their wars for them and how it would go. Like I thought that was like a cool like visual motif to go with in that moment.
It also added charm, I think, because of Woody, and the like integrating him and showing him that way, I think was done really well, because I think it goes with like his kind of character in the movie, but also like characters that we've seen him act before as well. It's no surprise that it's him that you see, it's his face. And I think it went well with introducing him, and also like what he becomes to Han throughout the movie as well.
Yeah, it was love at first spinning gunshot, basically. Like
it was beautiful.
It was spinning, and like Han like stops in the like fighting and like just like stares at him like while he's like doing the move or whatever. Again, this is another thing too, where other than Kira, Emilia Clarke plays Kira. We never said like her actual name.
You said Khaleesi.
You said Khaleesi. Again, an actor that I generally like, but again is not given a lot in this movie other than to be like either like in love with Han or sort of like a devious like backstabber is like her two like modes at all times. I think their lack of chemistry definitely hurts like her performance as well, but they surround them otherwise with like all these like super charismatic, interesting people. And I think that helps. It helps me like the movie more, but also makes their performances look a little bit worse in comparison. Even this like initial team that we meet, which is like, you know, the Woody Harrelson character, the Thandie Newton character, and the Jon Favreau voiced like four-armed pilot guy. You know, they have like a patter and a tone to the way they're talking and a charisma with each other that the other people don't yet, you know, have. And we start the sequence with, you know, Woody Harrelson basically is impersonating a military officer to try to steal this more coaxium again. It comes up again. Is steal more coaxium. This time a whole shitload of coaxium. And you know, Han kind of figures it out and sort of goes like, hey, I want to join your crew. And the Woody Harrelson character basically decides to basically tell on Han and get him essentially sent to his death for all he knows. And he gets thrown down this pit with a monster who ends up being Chewbacca. And this, we mentioned this before. He speaks Wookiee to him. And like, of all the things about the movie, and I think Justin, you said this before, that like are callbacks, or I think Mark might have said this too. I think Mark, actually, it might have been you, Mark. Like, this is the thing they had to do, right? We have to see how Han meets Chewie. You don't do a Han Solo movie if Han's not going to meet Chewie. It's just not going to happen. Right. And I think the way they like, I don't mind I will say this. I think each individual sort of like adventure / action sequence in this movie they're generally pretty good, and I think they're pretty well staged, and they have, you know, easily identifiable stakes for the most part. And I think like this is no exception. We get a good fight, and then we get some humor, and then we get, you know, this like kind of escape sequence that happens. I will say that in my brain, the thing I imagined Han doing for Chewie was not just like saving him from like a cell. Like, I thought it was going to be more than that. But, you know, again, that scene's good. And then they have to do the thing where he's like, oh, what's your name? And he's like, and he's like, oh, Chewbacca. We're going to have a nickname for you. And I'm like, oh, that's why he calls him Chewie.
Chewie. Which again feeds into he's a real asshole. Because he has an actual name. He's like, oh, I can't remember all that. I'm going to assign a name to you. Person that is essentially life slave to me. Let me give you a name now too, because you know, you belong to me. But I think their meet cute was better than Han and Kira. I really felt the 100%. Energy between
I agree so
Han
much.
and Chewie throughout the movie. And I'm not even saying that for like the laughs. I honestly, their relationship is much better explored than the Han and Kira one,
sure.
which they keep coming back to as like something that I'm supposed to feel. And I feel nothing for them because they have no chemistry and they've developed none of their story other than telling me loosely is like, she was my first friend and we were on this terrible planet together. I'm like, okay, I don't care. I just saw you like escape from a planet with Chewie, and you're just telling me we were kids. All right. Whatever.
Kelsey.
I do think that I like Kira way more when he sees her like after, and getting this idea, which I thought would have been explored, but we never learned about it, about like what she's had to do to survive. And I like that mystery part of her, and I thought Kira's character is interesting and was interesting outside of Han, but it's like we can't have a girl character without her somehow relating to the boy, and only being there for the boy, which is why I think I like the last 10 minutes a bit more than like the whole entire movie, for that reason, because I think she did something for herself.
Right.
In general, I agree with you, but like when you have a Han Solo story, if you're not relevant to Han Solo, then you don't belong in the movie. So in general, I agree with you that female characters should have their own path. No, because she doesn't appear. She doesn't appear in the sequel trilogies.
But just like Beckett is his own, but just like Beckett is his own character and has his own motivations.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, she doesn't really have those until the end, right? Right. We get revealed at the end that about her motivations. But like
very briefly,
barely, very briefly. Like,
you have to guess.
She falls victim to the same issue that I've had with the movie as a whole, is that they just do a lot of just like saying and not showing me anything.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you don't know what, you won't be able to look at me the same if you find out what I've done. And then they're like, oh, you don't know what she's done. I'm like, can you just show me?
Yeah.
Like, stop telling me the line over 3 different characters throughout the movie say, you're not going to look at her the same when you find out what she's done.
Yeah.
And then we don't find out what she's done other than who she's aligned with. And the movie ends. I'm like, wait, what?
See, but that's like a leap of logic that I thought that the movie was fine with going with, where it's like, yeah, I don't need to know what she's done. She's aligned herself with this like terrible cartel, and by the way, she's really proficient with weapons. She's probably killed a lot of people. Like, for a movie where it's like we criticize it for literally saying this is what we're going to show you, and then they show it to you. Here they're saying like she's done some bad shit. If
but
you
just
watch
they
what
say
she's
it
doing
3
and see what
times.
she's doing.
Yeah,
But we don't find out she's proficient with weapons until literally the last sequence.
I think the more problem is not like them not explicitly telling us what she did, but they make it seem like I mean, for people who know like drama rules, like this will be very, very, very obvious. But this is like there's something called Chekhov's gun in like the world of drama, which is like if you show a gun on the mantelpiece in Act 1, that gun's got to go off in Act 3 or whatever, because like why is it there? So you keep telling us, right, that she's not going to look at her the same way if you know what she's done, but like she never. We never get the moment where there's like the break, right, where he sees her differently, or he has the chance. Even speaking of Han's character, he never has the chance to like have his moment of choice where he goes like, no, I don't care about that. Like I've done bad shit too. I care about you. Like we don't even get that moment, right? We just get continuously told like, oh, because like it's not like Han's a saint. Like Han has been fighting in the Imperial Army, like probably killing people. Like he's not gonna give a shit. Like, you know, so that's the thing I don't understand about that moment. Like, I think there was probably stuff that was obviously drastically changed about the script when the change of creative took over, and also when the movie gets put out, scenes are probably cut and things are probably chopped up in weird ways. So you get stuff that probably at some point in the journey of making this movie made sense, and then that stuff gets taken away, and all of a sudden you're missing like key like points, right? Right. But like, you know, so Chewie and Han escape. They hitch a ride with Beckett and his crew, and they go on this like train, this very Captain America the First Avenger like train heist. Like it looked like so much, and that's not a criticism against it. It just looked so much like that scene.
But this is a double decker. It doesn't look anything like it.
I mean, I did like when the train would like flip over and stuff. Again, the cool visual stuff. Like the train flipping over was really neat. And like I think like the iconography of like the Enfys Nest like group, like the Mad Max-ish look of them is neat. Enfys Nest, who is played by Carly Morgenthau, who is essentially once again playing the same character she played in Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She's playing like the same exact character, but obviously we don't know it's her until the end, but that doesn't matter. There's this whole train heist. It's like, again, this is the part of the reason why the movie is like was tough for me to write a lot of notes about, because I'm like, oh, this is a cool action scene. There's not a lot to like dive into in it, right? It's just like it's a cool action scene. It's got like a nice varied set of like engagement parameters, right? We've got like on the top of the train, we've got the ship, we've got Thandie Newton's character like off kind of like doing like her sabotage thing. So we've got and then we've got Enfys Nest when she shows up. We got a whole other like engagement arena for that. So it's a well choreographed scene. But it ends with basically, I mean, Beckett is basically two of Beckett's crew dies. His wife, I think she's his wife, or at least his girlfriend.
Yep.
I think it's his wife.
Yeah. Whatever space marriage they have going on, and then the pilot, the four-armed pilot, gets shot, and he also dies. And just kind of like save their lives, you know, Han drops the cargo, this giant like train car full of this like, you know, warp drive coaxium stuff, and then it blows up this entire mountain, and they fly away, and Beckett's like furious at him for doing it. He's like, now we're gonna die, and I'm like, you guys would have died if he hadn't have dropped the thing. So like, I don't know what you want from the kid. Like, you definitely would have died, because the other people dropped it too, because they were gonna die because they held on to it longer.
in Beckett's defense, he says they're gonna let go of it.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't. And he was right. So in his defense, what he
right.
said was going to happen. They're gonna. It's like, no. They're gonna let go because they want to live. Just keep going. And then he's like, no, I gotta let go. And then both of them let go. He's like, I told you. I told you what was going to happen.
So to me, the end of this scene, for myself, it marks a cutoff in the movie from what I think is like the first like 30, 45 minutes of the movie, which I think is, we've railed on it a lot here, right? About what it's like. The rest of the movie, I kind of like dig most of it, the stuff that happens. The next thing we get like Han and Beckett and Chewie go to the Crimson Dawn ship. Crimson Dawn is this crime syndicate led by a Paul Bettany with a bunch of scars on his face. Like, I'm not totally sure what, I don't know if he's like an alien, some of the alien race that has like some sort of like 2-part skull. I don't know or he just has a big scar on his face. I don't know.
Yeah.
What the deal
He's like
is.
How do we feel about Paul
star.
Bettany playing a bad guy?
I think it's fine. I liked it. I thought he was.
Yeah.
I felt mildly uncomfortable every time he's on screen, and I think that means he's effective.
Yeah, exactly. I did feel definitely uncomfortable.
He felt unhinged the entire time he was on screen, and I'm like, that's perfect.
I got a very John Lithgow and Dexter vibe from him. Like, you're not supposed to be a bad guy. No, stop. I don't like this.
Have you obviously never seen the Da Vinci Code, Justin, where he's also a bad guy?
In the alternate
Code,
universe where Ron Howard doesn't take over this movie, though, it plays very differently because Michael K. Williams was originally that character.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay.
And then he wasn't available for the reshoots, so Paul Bettany apparently texted Ron Howard, is like, hey, I hear you're doing the Star Wars movie. And then he's like, oh, yeah, cool, you're on board. And then they reimagined it, because I think before it was more CGI, and then they came up with this humanoid thing because it'd be cheaper for reshoots.
Oh, interesting. Okay, all right. He has those cool energy daggers that look like something that would be in Valorant, Mark.
They look pretty dope. I was looking at them like, oh, why do I like this so much? I feel like I want to pay $17 for each of those daggers.
I want a cosmetic for my character. I thought he's an effective, heavy. It definitely communicated. Like, I definitely believed if they didn't do what they were going to do, they were going to die. Like, I definitely believed everything he was saying. Again, speaking to like Kira's whole situation, Kira is there. She's at the Crimson Dawn hideout. She's apparently like one of his top lieutenant or something like that. Again, this is very muddy because she also seems like she's still a slave. Like, it's like there's like a weird like. I think a lot of her character is unclear, right, in these moments, and I don't even know.
And also, it's supposed to be 3 years, no? Like, only 3 years.
Yes, 3 years
between then and now, and she's a top lieutenant, but also
she's moved
still
up
enslaved.
fast.
Yeah.
Also, I think Dryden Voss would have been canceled. Just his behavior is just very unbecoming towards his. Towards
he's definitely getting his YouTube channel taken down.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So this is when we get the plan is formulated, and I think this is one of the times where AE is like kind of like the most Han Solo that he is in the entire movie, and I'll give him definitely credit for that. Like, especially the fact that he goes for like this idea and he totally fucks it up. Like, I think that again is like very good Han Solo writing, and the way he acts and kind of does it, I think really works in those moments. And we get this plan, right? So there's no way they can replace the coaxium. He's gonna kill them, and they come up with this plan to get unrefined coaxium from this mine, space mine in Kessel, and basically bring it back to this other planet that can refine it. But they have to. But raw coaxium is very unstable, and there's a very short window of time. So it's basically like this, like, kind of like suicide mission. Like, it's basically all like, we're all in, like, we have to do this. The only way we're going to survive is if we do this. And Dryden Voss decides that Kira should go with the group, and sort of like watch over the mission or whatever. like I'm not really clear if like he basically is just like, I don't care about you and I want you to die because you vouched for these people who I wanted to kill. Like I'm, I'm not sure like his whole motivation for really sending her, thinking the mission was going to fail in the first place, but that we get the setup for what the rest of the movie is going to be at that point. I
can't believe I'm about to defend the plot. I can't believe I'm about to defend the plot of the movie, but they actually outlined it very briefly before what would be the motivations, at least for me.
Yeah,
because he's shown to be slightly possessive and emotionally unstable. And Kira mentions like, "Oh, we grew up together."
Yes,
and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then after that, it seems like he's immediately questioning her loyalty. So I think he sends her on the mission. And he's like, if you bring me back the thing, then you're loyal and we're all good. And if not, and it goes sideways, you die, and I get to like justify that you were disloyal.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I was not the person I thought that would bring that up.
Mark defending Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
And this sets in motion the rest of the movie. Again, talking about like the World War I sort of like in the trenches stuff. I love this kind of Star Wars shit where it's like, here's like a crime syndicate and we're doing the underdealings of what's happening, and like we're having little like, we're in a seedy bar around a table, and like, I like all that stuff when they do that stuff in Star Wars, media, because it definitely adds to me to like the realism of the world, and sort of fills it out a little bit. And does anybody, Justin, do you have any comments on this like whole sequence?
Just this whole, I mean, again, like this ending of this first part is like, I agree where it's fine. Like the beginning of the movie has been fine, but from here it really takes off. And I think this is why I like this movie so much, is like everything that happens from this point moving forward is all the stuff that we don't really see in Star Wars. Like, we don't see that seedy underbelly type stuff. Like, we've got bit and pieces of it in Coruscant, right? Where we're like, we get down to the street level and we go into these bars. Like, show me more of that. Show me more of like what this universe could do other than lightsabers. And that's what this movie is full of, except for when they actually literally show a lightsaber at the end of the movie. But like, let's check out different species. Let's like giant space Leviathans. Let's get into that. Let's get into human and robot relations. Like this movie is full of awesome ideas, and like all of them take off from this point moving forward. Also, we get to meet Lance Carlson in the next scene, and I cannot wait to talk about it.
I'm so glad that you brought that back. That was 8+1.
That was a good callback. Kelsey, do you have any thoughts on this scene? Like this whole sequence?
Not really.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
I don't know. It's really, I guess from this point on, I enjoyed the movie more. But like this whole part, like I started like washing the dishes. Like I was like, I don't care that much. Maybe like from here on out, it was interesting. But I really, like I said, I didn't care about Kira. Like, and that's probably why I didn't understand why she was also going on the mission. But yeah, it's like maybe from this point on, it was more enjoyable. But this whole scene, like I just.
So the next thing we found out is that they need a ship, right? So I know a pilot who has a great ship. He's retired, but he's a gambler. Like, let's go. And we meet. And I wrote down in my notebook, Donald Glover. Let's talk about him.
He's so hot, and he's so good in this role. I'm sorry, he's fantastic. L3, my favorite character, my favorite one.
Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. Like, if every moment he's on screen,
they need to do something with him. Like, if he goes down as playing this character in this one movie, and in the middle to end of the movie, and they do not pick up and go somewhere with this in the future, it is a crime against humanity. Because it almost seems like he was born to play this role.
Yeah,
I have a nit to pick with the characterization, not with Donald Glover, but with some of the writing, is how he arrives on calling him Han is adversarial, and I don't think honestly in the original trilogy there's nothing that felt adversarial. It's like, this is how I say his name, and he just never corrected me. It's like, no, it's like he's saying it as a jab, and now it's just the thing that didn't really work for me.
I mean,
It's
that's
like another one of those things where you like shoehorn in.
Yeah, it's another one of those things that's like the last name thing, right? It's like I don't need a excuse, I don't need a reason why he calls him Han. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but I don't think I'm looking it up right now. There's been a Lando series announced.
Yeah, I believe
the guy
so.
who created Dear White People is creating it. It's going to be on
thank
Disney
God.
Plus.
Oh,
It's-
I didn't even know that detail.
yeah, I mean, again, this was back in 2020 they announced it, so I don't know, like, but I assume it's still being made. It never got canceled, so
like the Benioff and Weiss Star Wars.
yeah. But anyway, we meet him. He's gambling. We get this. We get the scene where they're playing sabacc together, and here's what times they sort of like play against like your expectations, because you're kind of expecting like Han to win the ship in this scene,
Right.
and he doesn't, right? Because Lando is cheating. And I think
Which
that was
they really do another lingering shot of, let
Yeah.
me just put my arm out where I show the card holder so you can really know that I'm cheating. And then after they've shown that he's cheating, they have Han complaining about it for 5 to 10 seconds, saying how he's cheating. I'm like, I don't need you to tell me. You've shown me. What's happening? Why do you keep doing
Just in
this?
case.
listen.
Did you miss it? He's cheating. He's a cheater.
Listen, Lance Carlson, you're a dirty cheater.
Talking about imbuing the actual spirit of the character.
Yes.
I mean, he got
Yes.
down the voice, like the mannerisms, the voice work, just the pitch and the tone. Like, because
Everything.
when I was watching this, I actually ended up watching this today, and I was not actually looking at the screen when he came on, and I was just listening from the other room, and I was just like, oh my God, like I had forgotten how much he sounded just like him. And it was perfect. It's like, it wasn't like to the point where it's like, you feel like, okay, he's trying to imitate him. It was like, oh no, that is him.
Yeah.
It was really good.
And he gets the whole like spirit and charisma down of him as well. And that's the thing, like Donald Glover is an extremely charismatic actor. And that is really the thing that is most memorable and prevalent here, and it's the thing that's missing, from AE's performance in a lot of the moments, right? Is that he doesn't have that, he doesn't command the screen when he's on screen. The guy who's playing Han. Every moment that Donald Glover is on screen, he whether he's the focus of the shot or not, he's the focus of your attention. And that's the kind of performance that you need in something like this to make it feel authentic and make it feel worthwhile. And I totally agree, Kelsey. I think L3 is like a fantastic droid, voiced by Fleabag's Phoebe Waller-Bridge. This whole idea of like, robot resistance and equal rights,
my favorite topic,
and stuff like is not something that they do like in the movies or in like that at all. And so I think it was cool to see that, and like how like she gets like carried away with like what she's doing sometimes, and the whole like her and Han like love or whatever, like, and their sort of like intimacy. Her and Lando intimacy.
Lance.
Her and Lance.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Her and Lando like intimacy, I think is great. Like, even the little moment where he's like, "You're gonna need to do that thing again tonight," and he's like, "Yep," like that. Like I think it gives like a history, to. And those are the moments that feel very like Lord and Miller to me. Like those are the ones that feel like that's the stuff that was holdover from their like that, and like that scene with Chewie and Han and like in the shower together. Like all those moments have like the moments pop in a lot of ways that a lot of other moments in the movie don't. Character moments anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those feel like those types of moments that they would have had in there. Yeah, just like their type of touch. It's like that very brief moment for Han and Chewie in the shower felt very like Han and Chewie. It's like, we couldn't have done this separately. It's like, that's funny. That's great. That's the brief moment of levity in this like very dark, unsettling time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get in basically then from the time they get the ship, and kind of go on from there. We're basically in one long like 45-minute action adventure scene, right? The movie doesn't really stop again until we're back on the Crimson Dawn ship, 45 minutes later, essentially. And like, I think, again, not a lot to write about or talk about, like, as far as like, depth to what's happening, but I think this 45 minutes of the movie, I think is really good. Like, I think it's fun. I think the action is, again, they do a good job. I'm a very big proponent in movies like this about, if you have action scenes, the geography and like the stakes are extremely important to be clear at all times, right? And a lot of movies get this wrong. Like, there are movies that get this wrong all the time. But at every moment in this movie, in this action scene, from the time when they kind of invade the base to when they're on their run, you are very clear about like what the time frame is, what they have to do, and what's standing in their way. And I think it's all really fun and good. And there are spikes and great moments like L3 freeing the droids and stuff like that and causing like that prison riot. It's great. Justin, I know you really like the movie, so I want to hear your thoughts on like this section of the movie.
So the even when they're doing the run,
this to the run, because it's all kind of one big long.
Yeah,
sequence.
it is one basically long big one long sequence here. So yeah, like there's just so much about this that's great. Like L3 is a fantastic character. Star Wars needs to stop introducing really interesting droids only to murder them in the same movie.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating because I think a lot of the droids especially in the Star Wars stories, this and Rogue One are like, they're there for comedic relief, but they're also really good characters and they have good motivations and they don't have to keep dying. But yeah, the revolution, I like the little robot revolution where like she like takes off that inhibitor chip or whatever, and like the robot comes back to her and he's like, now what? Like in like robot language, and she's like, I don't know, go free other people. And like in that moment, she finds like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Like I'm supposed to be freeing my kind, and like her excitement at that fact just like radiates out over the course of the next 20 minutes, where she's just literally thrilled to be freeing her people. And at the same time, we have Han and Chewie downstairs trying to, get the goods that they're trying to steal. And there's that moment there where Han and Chewie separate. And, Han's like, look, go do what you got to do, man. Like to that point, it feels like, hey, like that debt is paid. Like, whatever, like we're good. Go do what you got to do. And here you might need this. And, obviously we see Chewie again. We know we're going to see Chewie again. But like, that was like a good moment. Then everything else that's just happening, like you have Lando in the ship monologuing to himself, which is just perfect. To the point where like, okay, there is now, the big action scene before they take off and L3 gets shot and is killed. And you see like Lando's like abject horror at this and is running out there to save them. And from that point on and up until they escape those clouds, like I thought that, like, I think it's visually maybe the most stunning any Star Wars movie has ever looked. When they're in that vortex or that maelstrom, where you see the Star Destroyer coming at them, and now they're in the clouds, and the Leviathan is there chasing them, and just everything about that scene is like everything I want to see from Star Wars. Like I am so tired of the whole lightsaber battles. Like I want more of.
I quit this podcast.
This is interesting. Like moving, I'm talking about like moving forward. Like there is so much more to mine out of this universe that's interesting, and this movie shows so much of it. Like it's like I think like this like half-hour sequence is awesome. Just like really, really good stuff that I want to see more of these movies copy. Like there's a lot of lessons that other Star Wars movies can take from probably one of the most panned Star Wars movies. There's way cooler stuff out there than just the Force.
I mean, I think, and I agree. Kelsey, do you want to expand on that?
No, I was just going to say that I definitely agree, because I think like they could do so much more, and I feel like they're kind of limited to people's expectations. And especially like with the lightsabers, like one of my favorite reviews, I was on Rotten Tomato today because I had to know like what people thought about it. And someone was like, there wasn't a single lightsaber in this movie for an hour and 40 minutes. And it was just funny because I didn't even like realize that, because I like, to me it just like I said, for the first 40 minutes I don't even know if there was a lightsaber because I was washing the dishes, but I feel like it added something different to people's expectations, and I feel like either way it will help the movie or like be a detriment. But I think it was interesting because it is that fact that like stuff we hadn't seen before, which is why like even in the next movies, the new ones where they follow like Finn and he's like an ex, I don't know if that's a, am I spoiling something?
No, that's
It's
like 10 minutes of Force Awakens.
And like that, and the reason people enjoyed his character a lot too was because he did something different too. And I think like when you're doing something cool and looking at these other facets of the Star Wars like canon, I think that's when it's the most interesting. And when you stick to the same things, people eventually do get bored. So it could be also like, I think this movie had a plus for that, but then a minus for it being about Han Solo. So there's still those expectations there. Where if it wasn't any of that, I think it would have done much better.
So I think here's a good example of what this movie does. Go ahead.
No, you go first.
All right.
No, I insist.
We talked about, I think earlier on about how like we don't really care about the characters, right? Because like, you know, there's not
No.
chemistry.
I care.
Chemistry between them, right? I bet we're talking about like Kira and Han, right?
Yeah, she
But,
cares
like,
about Beckett.
I don't.
Justin.
She cares very
Lance
very much
Carlson.
about Beckett. Yes. But like, when this movie ends, it's interesting to me where, Kira goes, and like you could follow the comic series that they're coming out with or that they came out with to go find out what happened with her and stuff. But like the main thing that I took away from this movie, other than I need to see more Lando, was like L3 gets uploaded into the Millennium Falcon's like brains, right?
Yeah.
And like Lando makes a part of saying like she's part of the ship now. And the fact that like we did not know this throughout all these other movies, like that felt like such a big moment, where because like they bring it back a couple times, like where Lando is like solemnly or like not solemnly but like mournfully looking on at the screen being like she's part of this now, like she's part of the ship, and then like later calls back like she's mapping the maelstrom, like she's finding us a way out. And it's just like this amazing character is now part of the ship that is still in the movies right now, and it's just like never brought up again. Like it's just like the one thing from this movie that no one will ever speak about ever again, and one of the coolest parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's retconning, though.
Yeah, it's retconning. It also,
yes, it is retconning. I know.
It's trying to, I think, assign like a tangible reason why everyone thinks the Millennium Falcon is so special. Like, I think that is like part of what it is. It's fast. It has this amazing computer. I think is like they're trying to give you like a reason why both like Han and Lando both have like this giant affection for the ship itself. Like it's more than just the parts that make it up, right? And I don't think they needed to do that to make that the case. The Millennium Falcon is amazing. It's always been amazing. It's like it's just a very coolly designed ship. But I think rewinding really quick to just a slight like criticism or negative about the movie, kind of just glomming onto what we talked about early in this discussion, is they have this moment, right, where Chewie and Han like see the Falcon for the first time and are like experiencing it, and it's supposed to be this moment, right? It's supposed to be this big moment, like, oh, this is Han seeing the Millennium Falcon for the first time. And the only thing in my head, I'm like, that's not Han Solo. Like this not being Harrison Ford takes all of the meaning out of this moment.
Exactly.
It's like the opposite of that moment in Force Awakens, right? Where they get back to that moment, even in the trailer, where it's like made you cry watching the fucking trailer, right? When he says, we're home, you're like, yes, you are. You belong there. Like with this guy, you're like, you're just some other guy who's on the ship. And again, once again, the reasoning, the part where this being a Han Solo movie is the worst part about the movie itself. Just go.
Yeah.
So I will say that scene that you're talking about has a very different and beautiful rendition of the Star Wars theme playing in the background when you're first seeing the Falcon. And I never picked up on that the first time I watched the movie, but listening to it today, I was like, that is really beautiful. And I had to rewind it twice and listen to it. Just like a very different.
Well, they had to make you feel something.
Yeah, that's like
I was feeling something in those scenes. Lando was there. I was feeling a lot.
There's a different composer for this movie for the most part, John Powell, and they brought in John Williams, and they like collaborated on the theme and like a couple tracks. And that's how I feel about this movie, is like it's connected but not fully connected. There's like some connection there. I had like a completely different feel for like you guys talking about like, oh, it's great they don't have lightsabers. Like, it's not like they're completely devoid of the other parts of Star Wars. It's not like they were really fully ground. Like, there were just a bunch of pew-pews everywhere. There's a large monster in space that they almost ran into with the Falcon. They barely get to the hyperdrive in time. They make the jump to light speeds to get out of it. And the thing that drove me crazy about that sequence was he's like, you remember when we were in the alleyway? Yeah, I remember we got stuck. Not this time. Oh, he's going to turn it the other way so they can make it through the slit. Like, how many times do you have to explain stupid shit that I don't need explained to me in the dialogue? It's like, it's going to work this time. Oh, I guess we're turning vertical. Like, Jeez.
I mean, I didn't even write it down this time, but I remember the first time I watched it, there's a one point in it where he goes like, I got a good feeling about this.
Yeah,
and it's like
that.
Okay, man, like I get it. Now you're young, so you have a good feeling about it. When you get older, you're gonna have a bad feeling about it. Once you have like experience, like all that stuff. But I will say, like, I do agree with Justin. Like the visual stuff for especially the Castle Run, I think is great. When that Star Destroyer does pop in, I'm like, that is a fucking awesome visual. When that Star Destroyer is
qualify it by saying it all looks great.
Yeah,
but like those types of things, like, so we were complaining about plant and payoff before that is like such a major part of storytelling. That's not what I mean when I say like you've planted this and then you're going to pay it off by mansplaining the situation to me. That's not what I'm talking about. There's like later, like over and over, Beckett. I'm jumping ahead slightly, but
we can jump ahead.
We can go.
Beckett makes a point multiple times. He says like, "Don't trust anybody," and then when he betrays him again, he's like, "I told you, don't trust anybody." I'm like, you didn't have to tell me. Like that's implied by when they open the door and it's you. I don't need the extra line of I told you not to trust anyone because I'm the bad. Oh, well, the only way it would have been worse if he said I'm the bad guy. Like that would make it clearer if there was any doubt. It's like I'm bad now. And so then later he says you made the right decision. I was gonna kill you. I'm like, that's implied. Why are you telling him you were gonna kill him? You had the blaster. Like, you made the right choice. I was gonna shoot you.
Because they got to make sure that you know that Han only shot first in a correct situation. Like that it wasn't like he didn't shoot first and kill somebody who wasn't going to kill him. So you had to make sure you knew because Han's the good guy. So there is. So they get the coaxium through the Castle Run. He does it in the whatever whatever parsecs.
12 parsecs.
12 parsecs. If you round down.
If you round down.
And they get to this planet. They start refining the thing, and Memphis Nest shows up. And this is when we get like sort of like the reveal, right? The Memphis Nest is this young woman who is like a freedom fighter who is basically starting the rebellion, right, against the Empire in many ways. Like she's part of like the very early parts of the rebellion against the Empire.
She's a real flag
this is where I started liking the movie.
And we
it's like 20 minutes to go.
There's 20 minutes left in the movie. Kelsey's in. But this here, and again,
she pulled out the helmet. I was like, yes.
These parts crop up like throughout this movie, and one of the reasons I like the movie is because there are these little pockets of, Dave Filoni is the guy who created, the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and he's working The Mandalorian and Boba Fett and all. He's basically running Star Wars at this point in many ways. But this sort of like take on the universe, this more like we're going to see a more of a ground level version of the universe, and we're going to see these pockets and these interesting characters pop up, is a very much a Filoni thing. And that stuff is like starting to show itself in this movie. And this is one of those moments, right, where like we learn about who she is, what she's doing, like, and the fact that like we learn about the I don't think we need to know the origins of Crimson Dawn, like that they were like that's again the movie's over explaining things we don't like. Her line when she's like these people like Crimson Dawn aid the Empire like in the shadows, that's all we need to know that like they're bad. Like the other stuff is not like that important. But we get interesting where like we get Han sort of being like, we can't give this stuff to Crimson Dawn now. Here's my plan, right? And Beckett is sort of like, well, this can only go right one way, and go wrong a bunch of other ways. I'm gonna just leave, or whatever. And then he just like pieces out. And then they go to this plan against Crimson Dawn. And I also was thinking, I I'm a big fan of scenes like this where it's like subterfuge within subterfuge. Like I like this kind of shit. Like spy shit is like completely my jam, right? And I like the sort of like stuff that they're doing, right? Again, it feels like we're in a different movie at this point. It feels like we're in a totally different movie. Basically, Beckett plays Han, but Han is like, I knew you. You told me you were the best, you not to trust anybody, and I listened, so I didn't trust you. So he has a whole other plan inside of a plan, right? To fool us, which almost also goes south at whatever point. But what did we all think of this sort of like last act of the movie? Kelsey, this is when you started liking the movie, so can you tell us why you like this part?
Definitely. Well, first of all, I watched it for the first time today. So I never saw this movie before. I didn't even know Woody was in it until he came on the screen, and I was like, oh my God. But I really like this part because I think it has the best parts of Star Wars, where it's like everything is kind of obvious, but it's still like a little shocking, and there's always like that. I find that this happens a lot where there's like this double element all the time, and I like that part, and I like that Voss was kind of like flippant about the coaxium. He's like, oh yeah, just bring it here because I already know it's fake. and I like that part. Yeah. And like I said, I liked Woody's character a lot. I like what it leads to at the end of the movie. Like I like that this is all a build up for the real betrayer, and it just, I think it ended in a way that made sense for a Han Solo film. Han Solo film.
Come on, Kelsey. Come on.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's how you know she's a big
Lance,
fan of
Lance fan
Lando.
number one.
Lance in hand.
My accent.
Justin, what did you think of this kind of ending section of the movie?
I'm also a big fan of the double crosser getting double crossed. Like
yes.
I had forgotten, because it's been a couple of years. I also had forgotten Woody Harrelson was in this movie till Woody Harrelson showed up, and I was like, "Oh, Woody Harrelson, awesome!" But this scene, I had forgotten how this scene went. I knew that there was going to be like they were going to planning on betraying Voss, but I couldn't remember exactly how it went, and I knew that Woody Harrelson's character had betrayed the others, but I forgot how they got out of the situation. And so when he was like, "I did listen," and I was like, "Oh, rad! I could do that. Like that's really good." So yeah, like I thought, look, this whole scene is great just because then you get the immediate battle afterwards between Kira, Voss, and Han, and you get those cool little Valorant, I don't know, brass knuckles almost. So yeah, I mean that was
cool.
It's a good scene. It's like it's a really good scene, and like I like when you kind of get your expectations subverted and then subverted again very quickly afterwards. So this scene was actually pretty good. And then where the movie goes from this point kind of is like, again, throws curveballs at you, but not in the same way. I like when we get to the ending of the movie, I have more thoughts on like Han's like actual character arc in this movie and where it plays in his overall arc in the films, which is a little bit weird, but we'll get there.
Yeah. What about you, Mark?
I have a different feel about this than everyone. I very much know I'm going to be the minority here. I thought it was like overwrought, like all the double crosses and everything. It felt like Sherlock Holmes, or like what really felt like is there's an episode of Breaking Bad, like a handful of nothing, where it's like, oh, this isn't meth, like that whole thing, where it's like they're just trying to have like their like 3 different wow moments in as truncated a time period as possible. It's like, oh, you think it's Kira, but she didn't betray him. It was Beckett, but he was ahead of Beckett, and it's actually the thing that's here. And there's another plan that's on top of a plan on another plan. I'm like, guys, can we just wrap this shit up already? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I think they had to pay off the whole, like, because Beckett says it to him so much, don't trust anybody, and then he says something else. Like,
but even if
the person will show you who they are. And like, they needed to pay that off somehow.
But they paid it off like 3 different times in the last 10 minutes. Like, he betrays him twice and then is going to shoot him and then he kills him. and he's like, "You did a good thing," and then you find out,
Yeah,
the
I mean
ultimate
that
betrayer
scene is
Kira.
overwrought.
Like,
Yes.
they paid it off so many ways that they didn't need to have like 5 different sub plans in the plan for me to maintain interest. Like, just it. I don't know. It felt a little.
I think
bit
it
much
was
to
the
me.
most. I think it was the most interesting part of the movie, though. Like, I don't know if it's like I just like soap operas. Like, I don't know what it is, but like it was the most interesting. I was like, oh, he did what? Oh, like, and they knew. Like, that, and then that Kira, but like left him. I was like, wow, this is crazy.
All I was thinking, the problem I have with this movie is just its existence, because it's a story about Han Solo being a like heartless, soulless smuggler who's moved by the rebellion. Like, that's his redemption story, and that's like the story of the entire original trilogy. And then he unlearns everything, betrays them, and then they're like, he has to learn again how to not be a total piece of shit.
Yeah.
So the existence of this movie makes his existence in the original trilogy even worse. Like, if you thought he was bad, then in like how he like leaves and then comes back and has his hero arc, it's worse because he was familiar with all this before and had already gone through the tribulations and trials to become a better person, and then ignored it for 10 years and then had to relearn everything because he's stupid.
Yeah. So I don't like, again. I don't think that it. I'll just I'll let you talk about. I don't think that it doesn't make me think about the original trilogy that way. But I agree with you. He essentially has the same arc in this movie that he has in A New Hope, essentially. Yep. Right. Justin, what were you gonna say?
Well, this is what I was talking about when I was saying like where he fits into the greater scheme of these movies is, you know, he continually says throughout the movie, "Oh, I'm not a good person. I'm not a good person." Yeah. Like, that's like when he was talking with Kira about, she's like, "I've done things." He's like, "I'm not a good person," and she's like, "No, you are a good person."
Yeah, you're the good guy.
You were fighting. Yeah, you were fighting with the Empire, but also then like you make like wise ass remarks about like, well, this is their planet and where we are the invaders. Pick a side, pick a lane, do something. Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, okay, you picked your lane. Like, you were like, "Oh, we can't do this. Like, we obviously can't do this. We're not giving them we're not giving them the goods." And then after this movie, he continues to go back to not doing anything again. It makes this is the one part of this movie makes no sense for this reason. Like, at the end of this movie, you're like, okay, if the next movie was, you know, now we're starting A New Hope and Han Solo is like, you know, a kind of helpful ally without it being like, "Oh, I've got to twist his arm to do it," it would make sense. But that's not the character. So why they chose to end the movie this way, I'm not sure. Where he's just like, "Well, I'm the good guy, but actually maybe I'm like gonna just hang out on the sidelines here."
They kind of have that covered though, with like they're telling everything, because Tobias, his character says like, "Nah, you can't come with us because like you do this once and then you're in this life forever." And so maybe that's the part that they're going with, where it's like Han is a good person in the end, but because he stays in this lifestyle, he takes on this like persona of being a bad person because he's been in it so long and like he can't leave, and like that's what
if you take on the persona for a decade, how much is it persona and how much is it just you at that point?
I mean, I think it's like the attitude in New Hope is like, "I'm just here for my money, princess, and then I'm gone." Yep. You know, so it's like, you know, which I love Han Solo. Don't get me wrong. This is not me criticizing Han Solo. It's just me criticizing this
the characterization.
Like, once again, the worst thing about this movie being it is a movie about Han Solo. Like that is the main problem with this movie. You know, leading up to the very end where he's like, Beckett said there was this gangster in Tatooine that had a good job. Trust me, this'll be great. You're like, but it won't be great. You're like, okay, like I didn't need this. Again, we're fast forwarding because again, in probably 5 months from now or whatever, we'll do Rogue One. But like, it's like the same thing at the end of Rogue One where it's like, I don't need this to smush into another thing. Like, you know, it can exist on its own. You know, in this universe and not have to just like lead directly into something else that we've already seen. And
like the double crossing, while it was the most interesting part of this movie, I do agree that I think it would have ended better and made more sense if he wasn't moved by the rebels yet.
Yeah,
Like he has this interaction with them, and like the seeds
100%.
are being planted in his head, but he doesn't like do this big thing. But I think they were also afraid of like making people upset.
Yeah, they want him to be the hero.
Actions.
They want him to be the hero of the movie. Yeah.
Which is dumb because he has to learn to be the hero in the movies we've already seen.
Exactly.
So if he's learned it,
yes.
that means he's unlearned it, which means he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
He should have ended up at the end of this movie like nicking part of that score. Like not just a tiny little crystal. Like for it to really be Han Solo, he should have been like waving goodbye to everybody and then keeping one of the canisters for himself. Like that that would have been more true. Like I did a good thing, but I got mine in the end.
Yeah.
That would have been more true to where we see him at the start of A New Hope instead of him being like the altruistic good guy.
Yeah.
And being like, sure, I'll take this little thing.
And he doesn't even ask for it, right? It's given to him. He doesn't even ask for it. He's going to do it for absolutely nothing. And that's not the Han Solo that we see, right, in A New Hope at all.
My favorite part of these podcasts is when we start rewriting it to be a better movie.
Yeah, well, we can do it.
Justin did a great job there because that would totally have not redeemed the character, but redeemed the movie that it feels more authentic to the character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we meet up with them.
Yeah, we do get a good. Sorry, go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just want to talk about Kira for a bit, but if you want to continue about Han, we could always get there in a minute.
Yeah, let's close off Han, and then we'll go back to the big moment with Kira, which unfortunately is never gonna get paid off ever because this movie didn't do well. But it's an extremely cool moment. But it's just like we're never gonna get paid off. So, the last thing we see of Han, right, is he finds Lando, and they have like their Sabacc rematch, and he steals the card that Han keeps in that Lance keeps in his jacket, and then he beats him like fair and square and takes the Falcon. It was great to see Donald Glover again. Like this time we get the scene that we expected the first scene to be, right? Once again, the movie needing to like overdo it as far as like explaining, like if that scene had just ended with Han showing up and be like rematch, like then you would have like. Fine.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen. He's going to win the Millennium Falcon. We've seen the other 6 movies in which he has the 4 movies which he has the Millennium Falcon. Like we're fine. We get it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Han Solo is. You're not telling us anything that we don't already know. But for complaints about the movie, it's a very minor like complaint. I think that the last scene is fine. Like I think it's a good way to end the movie considering what the movie is. But rewinding back to Kira, we get this end scene with this ending thing with Kira where she kills Dryden Voss, and later on, right before basically Han kills Beckett, he goes like, "Oh, did she kill Voss?" Mm-hmm. Yep. Like he knew what was going on with her. She kills Voss. She takes his ring and she like calls base. And we figure out who the leader of Crimson Dawn is, and it's Darth Maul. It's a cool scene. Like once again, they have to do just like the step too much.
Double wield.
Like in case you didn't know this was Darth Maul, guys, he's still got the double lightsaber.
Yep.
Like we know there aren't any other characters who have a red devil face with spiky horns out of their face. We know who he is. But it's still a cool scene. It's like being a fan of Clone Wars and of Rebels, like it fits completely within like the actual like mythos of the universe at this point. Cool to see him again. Like I was very excited at the time. Like what again, because it felt like a very Filoni thing to do, which is like to show this character and then lead into something else, and we never got what was going to show up. 2 questions, I'll go around. What do we think about the Maul reveal? And that's A. And B, do we think this was Kira's plan the whole time? Kelsey, I want to let you go first.
Okay, perfect, because I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
First thing, while I liked the inclusion of Darth Maul, I feel like having him speak, as someone who's only seen the movies, I haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels. So I know he has more like prominent roles there.
Oh yeah.
But as someone who just watched the movies, like I think it would have been more effective if he didn't speak, because like you said, we know who it is, and if she would have just relayed what it was and he had like one line like, "Okay, see you at the base" or whatever, I think it would have been more effective. Which brings me into my second point and answer to your question, that I do think it was her plan the whole time, because this movie's telling you every 5 seconds that we don't know her. We think we do, but we don't know her. We don't know her, and it's said 14 times. And I think that is proof that I think that was her plan the whole time, because you could tell she's uncomfortable in Boss's presence. She doesn't like him, obviously. She's evil, and we don't know her at all. She's very good at acting. So I think there's all this part that led up to this, and like maybe it wasn't necessarily always her plan, but it happened to become her plan because of what ended up happening, that they weren't going to take the coaxium. That they weren't going to take that. So I feel like it developed there. I don't think it was her plan the whole movie. Her intent to kill Voss might have always been there. This was just like an opportunity for her. But when that fucking cage came down behind the windows, I was like, what's happening? I'm a little like excited here.
I do like in their conversation that he's like, what happened? She's like, I don't know. I wasn't there.
I'm the only survivor.
I'm the only survivor, though. Which I wasn't here. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I just walked in and took his like super secret decoder ring and used it to call you. Justin, what do you think of Darth Maul? What do you think of? You think it was Kira's whole plan the whole time?
I also had never seen the Clone Wars, but I had, through just osmosis, known that Darth Maul was brought back at some point. So I obviously did not expect to see him. I thought it was really cool. Of course you brought out the double lightsaber because you had to.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this scene with Kira. Her motivation is like ridiculously unclear. Like, because the entire time,
but we don't know her, Justin.
Yeah, you don't know what she's done, Justin.
You don't know her.
I legitimately don't know if she's doing this for Han. Because it feels like every time she is dreading every second of the steps that she's doing to get Maul on screen, and then when Maul is on screen, it looks like she wants to die. It doesn't look like she's a mastermind who had planned this out and is now going to be Maul's top lieutenant. Like, she's moving up the chain. Like, she looks uncomfortable as all get out, and I think, to me, it almost looks like I am going to go there and just pull all distraction away from Han, because she doesn't mention him, doesn't do anything. But also in that last moment where she sees him, she doesn't have to go and turn to him and be like, smile. Like, that's the word. Whenever I thought about you, I smiled. Like, if she was some mastermind, she would just let him walk out the door and not leave that lingering thought of like that she has real feelings for this guy there.
Yeah, come on, Justin. Masterminds
have feelings. Have feelings, Justin.
or they just realize the impact of the perception of having feelings because they're sociopaths.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a book I want to read about that, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark? How do you feel about this?
I felt the reveal was cool. I like the shung of the double lightsaber coming out again. As someone that only watched the movies, I was disappointed it wasn't Peter Serafinowicz. Big fan of his voice. And big fan of him in general. I'm familiar with his voice.
Very funny guy.
Very funny guy, but I just like his voice. His voice is Darth Maul's voice in my head, so it was slightly different.
Yeah.
So that threw me off a little bit. As for if it was her plan, I don't think so. She strikes me as a Han Solo type, if you were looking at a script, where she fails upward, where she might advance slightly in spite of herself on occasion. It's like, oh yeah, this is the plan all along, because if it was the plan the entire time, I don't think she would put her like life in the hands of so much doubt. The mission had a very low chance of success.
Yeah. You were, I think it's opportunity.
Assembling it as you're going along. Like, you're assembling the crew and the plan as you're going along. So if this is her plan the entire time, she's a fucking genius. Like, this is a Stephen Hawking level of genius in the space world. So I don't think it was her plan. Although as we've said, we don't know who she is, and I don't think that's even within the world. I think it's just poor screenwriting that I don't know who she is, her motivations, or what she's fully capable of, because you've told me jack shit about her for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. Like I think the reveal is rad. Like Sam Witwer does the voice of Maul in this. He did the voice on the animated stuff.
Right, I read that.
Yeah. He's great as the character, and so that even more bums me out that we're not going to see him show up again. At least we don't know, right, at this point.
Wasn't there a Maul project announced though? I thought.
I don't know.
Or was that fake?
There was a rumor that he was going to be in the Kenobi show, and but it got changed.
Right, I did read that.
And as far as my question about Kira, I don't think, like I said, I agree with you guys. I don't think it was her plan the whole time, but I think at a certain point in the in the lead up to what happened, she decided this is my chance to kill Voss, and because she picked up that ring quite quickly and put it in there was not a lot of hesitation going on, so I think somewhere in her head she had this plan, like at some point I'm gonna kill this guy and I'm gonna take his spot.
Well, as she turned the ring, and right before the maulogram, as I would say, patent pending, came up, she has like a slight facial turn, kind of like Green Goblin, when Willem Dafoe goes full Willem Dafoe, where she's like, "I'm evil now." I was like, "Oh, that was a different look." And then
it's when
Darth Maul,
thing...
right, when the cage comes around, she's like, "There's danger outside. Cage me in, Papa."
Yeah.
And then when Darth Maul comes on the screen, he's like, "I'm gonna bring you next to me. We're gonna be real close now." She's like, "Oh shit, I'm not." Yeah,
I definitely think she was
and
like,
"Oh." There's that look of abject horror that Justin was talking about. Where I'm like, wait, now I'm confused. Is she evil or is she in over her head, or is it a little bit of both?
But,
there's a lot of like Star Wars canon stuff, and this is like in the books a lot. Is this idea that like a lot of people that work for the Empire don't actually want to work for the Empire. And this like duality between people and how they just end up picking a side because they have to. And I like those aspects of the books. And I think Kira, the reason I like this scene is because it showed something that I've seen in the books where they're just regular people and they're just trying to survive and live, and like whatever happens, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily heroes. They're just normal survivors. And she was the only survivor, so don't forget.
Right. Yeah. The only survivor. She's the only survivor. She doesn't know what happened. She wasn't there.
I really like how Maul asks no follow-up questions to that. Like,
no.
Where were you?
His follow-up question is, I'm taking out my fucking lightsaber and you're coming over here. And we're gonna have a talk. Is like
you
her
don't
is
need to have follow-up questions when you go the Chong Chong.
Yeah.
You saw her face.
Yeah.
She's like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
In case you forgot, Kira, I am a Sith Lord. It's funny because to speak on just quickly, like Maul in the like Filoni verse, in like the Clone Wars Rebels aspect of stuff. Again, one of the things where the movie doesn't totally line up with like what the canon that's come before and after it is that Maul hates the Empire. He hates them. Like he hates Obi-Wan Kenobi more, but he hates the Empire because he hates Anakin Skywalker. He hates like that he was supplanted. He hates all of those things. So the fact that he's helping them in this world is like a little bit off character, but he also has a lot of grand plans and designs. So but like that was the one moment for me where I was like, meh, this is not exactly what Filoni would have wanted.
I think. Well, you just kind of encapsulated most of the cast of this movie. Or I should say within the movie. It's just like grand plans and designs. It's every character in this movie. Mm-hmm. And most of them are horrible at fulfilling them. Yeah. It's like Lando has big plans and he messes up. Kira's got big plans. Han's got big plans. Beckett's got big plans. Everyone's got big plans. And most of them fall flat on their face.
Yeah, mostly all of them, yes. Fall completely flat. But yeah, that wraps up Solo, a Star Wars story. Whenever we do this next, we'll be talking about Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Can I just say this is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and I'm so excited.
Rogue One?
Because I know nobody likes it. Yeah.
No, most people love it. What are you talking about?
I love Rogue
One's my favorite Star Wars movie.
A lot
I've
of
been
people
so excited
that
to
I
get
know
up to this
don't
point
like
because from Rogue One
I love
forward
it.
for at least 3 movies, including Rogue One, I get to be positive.
I've
love
only seen
Rogue One.
to give people a preview of what's going to happen when we do this next podcast. I saw Rogue One time in the theater. I was incredibly excited about it, and I ended up feeling kind of cold about it when I finished it. So I am looking forward to watching it again and seeing how I feel about it now. I'm not going in thinking like I didn't hate the movie by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have any like hate for the movie. But much like we talked about with a lot of these movies, right? Especially these like interstitial movies that go in like the middle places. I had a lot of expectations for what I was expecting it to be, and it didn't hit like a lot of those expectations. So, but I'm interested after I've seen it and kind of had a lot of space from it, going back to it and seeing how I feel about it.
I wonder how you'll feel about it coming off of like Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, like getting away from, because this was like, it was the first, right?
Yes, it was the
Rogue
first
One
one.
was the first. Yeah. So like, it being the first one maybe colored your opinion a little bit. I guess we'll see.
I'll say I'll just give you my general thought of it was it didn't go far enough away from the established Star Wars stuff that I wanted it to. Essentially, that is like how I felt about it then. So I'm interested to see how I feel about it now, going back to it and watching it and sort of knowing what it is already and experiencing it. And then we get into the original trilogy. So that'll be a fun thing to talk about. And then we'll wrap back around to the sequel trilogy. And
The real Han Solo.
Yeah, the real Han Solo. Please stand up. He'll be here.
Yeah. Harrison Ford's in the waiting room.
And unfortunately, I don't know if Disney Plus has the version where he shoots first, but we'll see what happens. It's always funny to go back to those original 3 movies and find out, okay, which version of it am I watching at this point?
Yeah.
Because they've changed it so many times and even altered the ones that were already altered. So it's like I don't even know what the state of it is at this point. I haven't even like looked into like what the state of those movies is at this point. I know it's not the original version, but like, whatever.
The closest version to the theatrical cut is like a laser disc. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
actually a thing.
And then they did do like a DVD version where they basically like just didn't do anything to it. Just took the laserdisc version and basically put it onto DVD, and it was out for like it came out. They put out like all these special editions of the movies, and that was one of they put up both editions, and that edition got it basically is out of print again. So I don't even know like if you can even access that shit. But anyway, we're not going to be able to get away from seeing Han awkwardly step over Jabba the Hutt's digital tail in that one scene. Where they kind of just move him up and down.
It's so janky. It's so unbelievably
but
janky.
We'll see. That's amazing because that's got a lot of like nostalgia and stuff wrapped up for it, especially for Mark and I. So we'll see how that stuff goes. Kelsey, do you want to tell people where they can find you other than on this wonderful podcast?
Yes, on my YouTube channel, Reading with Kelsey, if you like books. Every December, I read Star Wars books. So, and Twitter, Kelsamus, KELSSAMUS.
And very soon, another show on this channel.
Oh yeah,
Professor Kelsey. No, you didn't have to talk. No. I was asking you to promote your own stuff.
I have the book.
Professor Kelsey's book club.
Talking.
Professor Kelsey's book club. We're gonna get dressed up, have nice drinks, and we're gonna talk about. You gonna tell the book they were talking about? It's not everybody can see it.
Clara and the Sun. Oh, Clara. Sorry. Yeah, I was like, this one.
This one.
Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. And it's about a little artificial friend named Clara who finds a family.
All right. Justin and I are reading that book, and we're going to discuss it with Kelsey in the near future. We're going to get dressed up in blazers and have some drinks and talk about the book. His arm will be in a sling at that point, but he will soldier on and be there. Mark, sometimes you still stream every 7 months, just about as often as we do this podcast. You stream. Where can people find you if you do that?
I'm at twitch.tv/Ursus Fidelis. On social media, I'm at twitter.com or instagram.com/Ursus Fidelis TV. And I'm also on another podcast, the Hall of Fame Video Games and Movies podcast. You can find that on all of your favorite podcast mediums of choice. I don't know how to
platforms.
Describe platforms.
I think platforms.
Platforms. Podcasting is the medium. Platforms is the right word. Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome.
Back to you.
You can find Justin and I on this here channel, misadventure.land, all of the time. We also are joined by our newest member, Luminous Sky. We just said we have a tier list up for all the FromSoft games. I think next week, Justin, we're about due to do a normal podcast. I haven't really counted since the last time we did a normal podcast, but I think we're close to it.
We were talking about Elden Ring not that long ago.
Yeah, that's true. That was on a regular podcast, right? That was a month ago, Justin. Elden Ring came out a month ago.
No, that wasn't. No, that was...
Elden Ring came out the end of February. It's the end of March.
Let's take a look at this.
But we are going to do we have our show called Wayfinders, which is a video game book club, not to be confused with Professor Kelsey's actual book club that we're doing with our friend Jake, aka Planet Redbeard. We're going to be diving deep into Elden Ring. That'll be in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, make sure you rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. Like and subscribe at misadventure.land, our YouTube channel. But that's going to do it, I think, for our Star Wars discussion for this episode. I'm not going to even try to do the thank you thing because...
I was thinking about it. You didn't see my face concentrating?
Okay, we're going to give this a try. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you to everyone who's watching and listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Roger, Roger.
Roger.